During the process of replacing the head gaskets on the engine, and redoing a lot of the wiring, I was really looking at how all this was supposed to be set up, and I realized that it was completely wrong. I don't even remember how I had it, but I was running a ridiculous... I basically figured out that my wastegate actuator was set up for like over 30 psi only, and it wouldn't ever do less than that, no matter how I adjusted my boost controller. I had a 25 psi wastegate actuator with a ton of preload, like 20 millimeters of preload. So basically that thing wasn't ever opening. So now we got 15 psi wastegate actuator with actually negative preload. So this is actually holding the wastegate open slightly all the time to reduce boost buildup a little bit. So we should have a little bit less than 15 psi of boost as it's adjusted right now. So how this works, we have the boost controller hooked up to, this is going to be hooked up to the compound pressure. So it's going to be all the way over here on the nipple on the bottom of on the side of the lower intake manifold. I'm going to get a vacuum manifold, and then it's going to run all the way through this hose into here, which is connected to the boost controller and feeds into the solenoid switch. So how this works is when pressure goes in here and it exceeds the set pressure, so right now it's at roughly 10 psi. Once it exceeds 10 psi, it'll press the switch on this, press the switch right there, the white switch on this micro switch, and then that will send power to the solenoid. When the solenoid is triggered, hold on, actually, you know what, never mind. This is actually set up to, by default, always send compound boost to this. So this is the normal, I gotta think how this is. So basically I set it up so that by default this sees compound pressure all the time. And then if I set this up to be higher than 15 psi, if I set this to more than 15 psi, this will actually send, it will close off this side and it'll open this side, so it'll just send atmosphere to here. So pretty much this will never open unless hot side back pressure exceeds the spring pressure and just forces the wastegate open. But then once compound boost exceeds the set pressure, say I set this to 25 psi, then this will switch over and then route the compound pressure through here to the wastegate and open the wastegate, to the wastegate actuator, and then open the wastegate. So yeah, you got to know what you're doing with the micro switch. Has 3 prongs on it, has normally open, normally closed. So you got to make sure that's wired up correctly. And then I made sure that if for some reason any of these wires break, it defaults to allow compound pressure to the wastegate. So it'll default to wastegate setting when any wires break. And that's how it should be. So basically this is always going to be energized when the car is on, unless you have the boost set to less than 15 psi of pressure, pretty much. And then as soon as the pressure hits this setting, if it's less than 15 psi, it'll de-energize this and send boost pressure to the wastegate actuator.